Yeah. I mean, it's all relative, depending on what Whataburger versus that. It's for sure healthier, but being promoted as a health product, it's all sugar.
That can comes a lot healthier.
All right, we're going to get started. 6:01 will just join us whenever. We're very fortunate to have Pollack here with Nutritional Wisdom. She's doing a 3-part series. This is one, so we'll divide it up into each shift. So next time will be either A or B shift. So just a little bit about Carly. Carly is the founder of Nutritional Wisdom, a thriving practice in Austin, Texas. She's a certified clinical nutritionist specializing in holistic nutrition and wellness. She's been awarded the best nutritionist in Austin for 3 years running and has helped over 10,000 people achieve their wellness and or health and happiness goals. She's lectured all over the country, including incredible companies such as Facebook, Whole Foods, Livestrong Foundation, Lululemon,
Atlassian.
Okay. WeWork, Blackwater Foundation, and the Texas Medical Association, among many, many more. This year she was featured speaker for the Texas Conference for Women alongside key note speaker Viola Davis. Growing up, Carly struggled with anxiety, autoimmune issues, and ongoing battle with her weight. Through trial and error, mostly error, Carly was able to figure out why so many of us fail to achieve the health we so badly desire. Throughout the years of study and self-healing, she found the key to creating permanent change. Carly beautifully marries the science of the body to the wisdom of our intuition. Raised as a quick-witted New Yorker, she was raised without the ability to sugarcoat the truth. You won't find any nonsense here, just clear and honest information. Some tough love if you need it. Her teachings empower you to shift your thought patterning, change your physical body, and eliminate stress, and live your best life. She is the author of Finally Fulfilled, Lose Weight Permanently, and Find Your True Self in the Process, set to be released by New World Library Publishing in January 2019. So thanks a lot, Paul.
Thank you. You can call me Pollack, then I feel like one of the boys. I'm really excited to be here because this is my first lecture since coming back from maternity leave. I've had exactly 3 hours of sleep last night, but I think I've listened to enough Beyonce on the way here to really pump myself up. We'll see what my word recall is like during this lecture, because that's the first thing that goes when you, who has children here? It's the first thing that goes when you don't sleep, so this should be interesting. As Matt said, we're gonna do a series of 3, but because, even though we're streaming to other people, we're quite intimate here. I will take questions at the end, and let's make sure that we get a good dialogue going, because I want to make sure that I answer questions that you have in your specific life. Let's take advantage of the fact that there's not that many of us here versus when I'm speaking to a really large audience and I can't really connect with you guys. The reason why I wanted to start with 5 shifts, the 5 shifts that I made that drastically improved my health, is because I believe that a lot of people think that there needs to be this divine shift, that you need to wake up one day and see the light, and all of a sudden you're making all of these changes. And that's not really how it works. For some people it might be, but it certainly wasn't for me. It was a bunch of small shifts that I started to make over time, and when I took inventory over the past 5 years, I was in a drastically different place than I was when I first started. This is me to the left. This was about 17 years ago. I was very much into health at that time. In fact, that picture was taken, I was mid-run, and I was running in front of my house, and that's my skinny, healthy mother that I was stopped to take a photo with. And if you can tell, I just thought that I looked so good. And I was very into health at that time, but I was into mainstream health. I had gone to school for mainstream nutrition, so I was taught what Western medicine still teaches to this day. And it wasn't until I got a master's degree in holistic nutrition that I really had to unlearn everything that I learned in the 4 years that I went to college. And this was me after putting the principles of holistic nutrition. Holistic meaning that we look at the body as one. It's not a symptom here and a symptom there, that every single thing is connected, from your mental capacity to your gastrointestinal system, to your skin, to your mood, to your beliefs, that everything creates ultimate wellness and health. It's not just the food you eat. The first shift I want to discuss with you guys is how to break free from the diet dogma. We actually may wind up doing an entire lecture on this as part of the 3. I would like you to vote at the end today. Not today, but I'll ask Matt to send the lecture topics because we had decided them, but I find that it's best once you've come to see me speak once that you think about what you want to learn as we go on. So we do have an entire lecture. I will just touch on this today. You have paleo, you have keto, vegan, vegetarian, FODMAPs, GAPS diet, Pegan diet, Atkins diet, Weight Watchers. I mean, there's so much dogma out there. No one size fits everyone all of the time. I want to teach you how to eat for you, and more importantly, I want to teach you how to listen to your body's signals so that when your body changes, your food can change with it, and you don't get stuck in one idea of how you should be eating. Before we talk about diets, I just want to go over and clear the air of what is what food, because I'm always surprised at the misconception people have about what's a protein, carb, and fat. So I'm going to sum it up in 5 minutes, and I'll keep this part short because it can tend to get a little boring. No one food has only protein, carb, and fat. So your steak is not only protein, and your sweet potato is not only carbohydrate. That's why there's so much argument over what's a protein, what's a carb. You know, any vegetarians in here? Vegetarians will say, well, nuts are a protein, or nuts are, and then people who eat paleo will say, well, nuts are a fat. What I like to do is I'll classify a food by what it has most of. So we're going to put it in the category of what it has most of. So first we have proteins. Do you guys recognize Pauly D? I grew up in Staten Island, although I don't tell people that because it's embarrassing. And I promise you that my first 3 boyfriends looked exactly like him. And I went to school with one of the people that was on Jersey Shore, so I'm going to try to keep the Staten Island inside of me today. For proteins, if it has eyes, it's a protein. If it walks on land, swims in water, it's a protein. Your fish, chicken, eggs, turkey, beef, lamb, whey, and now what's becoming very popular, rightly so, collagen. Your fats are all your cooking oils, your fish oil, your nuts and seeds, your avocados, your olives, your butter, ghee, which is clarified butter. And everything else that you eat that I didn't mention is a carbohydrate. Fruits and vegetables are actually carbohydrates. You have your starchy vegetables, your sweet potatoes, white potatoes, acorn squash, butternut squash, beets, carrots. Starchy vegetables are vegetables that carry a little bit more carbohydrate to them. So for people who are looking to lose weight, we want to minimize carbohydrate. But for men who are looking to gain muscle and don't need to lose weight but want to make sure that they eat enough calories, we want to maximize starchy carbohydrate. And then you have your unprocessed grains. The word unprocessed means that it grew from the ground and can show up on your plate and there was no processing involved. For example, if you have brown rice, it grew and then you have brown rice on the plate versus a brown rice tortilla, which is not unhealthy, but it's slightly processed because it had to go through some sort of processing to wind up as the thing that it now is. Oh, I'll put it back on slideshow. Okay. The biggest goal I have for helping people shift to a healthier diet is to stop getting their carbohydrates out of a box. Most of our carbohydrate intake comes from processed carbohydrates like cereal, crackers, bread, pasta. If you take away one thing from this lecture, and I hope you take away much more than that, but if it were one thing, it would be to eat foods that rot and spoil. And that is coming from the energy principle of eating. The energy principle of eating is that as humans, we are energy sources. We're just molecules bouncing off each other. We're one big ball of energy. And in order to have an exchange of energy, we also need to eat foods that have energy, or else we would eventually die. Foods that have energy rot and spoil. The quicker a food rots and spoils, the more energy, vitality, and life it has for us, meaning it's healthier for us. When you think about a peach, which is a carbohydrate. A peach is going to rot in 3 or 4 days. I know because I just bought some and I went to eat one today and it was already rotten. Avocados, it's like you blink and they're rotten. Versus oatmeal that you get in a box, which could sit on the shelf for 6 months and still be completely viable to eat. People ask me all the time, and I was a cereal kid growing up. That's something that I miss even to this day, just, chowing down on a big bowl of carbohydrates and sugary milk. But people ask me all the time, what is a healthy cereal? Please give me a healthy cereal. There's always going to be a range of what's healthy and unhealthy. I don't want you to think in black and white. Of course, Fruity Pebbles is more unhealthy than Akashi Goleen. But the reality is that the cereal comes in a plastic bag in a cardboard box. It's sitting on the shelf for what can be up to a year. Twinkies are going to outlive us all. I have this weird form of Nutri-Grain bar that a client brought me, I think 8 years ago, because they wanted to ask me if it was okay, and I said no. In fact, I'm going to steal this and use this as an example when I go over food labels. I swear, it's still in my office, and every time I pick it up, I think in the back of my head, if I were starving to death, I could eat this. What energy do we feel that is going to give our bodies in the long run? Instead of paleo, keto, vegan, and we can get so much more into detail about that, I want you to start thinking about when you have food on your plate, does this rot or spoil? Then you're going to be preventing disease, giving yourself energy, balancing your hormones. It's a far easier way to think about food than to get really micro-complicated in the dogma of dieting. What diet should you follow? None. None of them are specific to your needs. And what we don't realize is your needs are always changing. Even though it may not drastically change from day to day, they're going to change. Let me give you an example. On a day that you fly on a plane and you're sitting for 6+ hours, you may not need to eat any animal protein that day, since animal protein is harder to digest than produce. And I believe different diets are different people. I've recommended vegan or vegetarian diets. I personally eat meat at almost every single meal. I'm not anti-animal protein by any stretch or form. I'm really pro finding the diet that works for you. But there are some days where I don't want animal protein. Maybe I'm not exercising, perhaps I didn't get a good night's sleep. What if I ate a really heavy meal the night before and I haven't pooped that day and my digestive system is really clogged up and it doesn't want me to eat bacon first thing in the morning? You know how hard it is to pinpoint that communication if you're on the paleo diet and you wake up and you go, well, no, I have 3 eggs for breakfast and my this, and you get so stuck in the dogma that you don't listen to the body. Does that make sense? Your food requirement is going to change day to day, and your food intake should depend on your goals, activity levels, current physical imbalances. The body always has some sort of imbalance happening, whether it's lack of sleep, stress, lack of nutritional intake, deficiencies, hormone imbalances, more so for women than for men, but men too. We see low testosterone is almost an epidemic that we're seeing now in men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, way before we would have ever seen someone go through what we call andropause, which is the male form of menopause. Based on these imbalances, food can help you rebalance, but no diet book would know what's going on with you. When people come to see me, I always tell them I want you never to read a diet book ever again, except for my book coming out in 2019, which is the anti-diet book. Please feel compelled to buy 50 copies if it so moves you. Here's the bottom line for this shift. I want you to eat whole, unprocessed foods. I am uber realistic when it comes to everything nutrition. This doesn't have to be 100% of the time. You don't have to turn into a raw food vegan. I want you to just look at the percentage of the foods that you eat inside of a box, or foods that don't rot and spoil, to the percentage of foods you eat that are alive and healthy. Can you tip the scales 5%? Remember, this is about making small changes. So before the lecture started, you had asked me about the smoothie, and I said that the Jamba Juice or the smoothie places where you can get smoothies that are marketed as really healthy, and you asked if they're healthy. And now you understand that it's all relative. If you were rushing in the morning and you were going to eat a Nature's Valley granola bar because you didn't care about losing all 20 of your teeth, because that's how hard they are, and you went for the smoothie instead, well, the smoothie is more alive because there's fruits in there, and perhaps they put some vegetables in there. But in reality, they also put a lot of sugar. They don't use organic produce. It could be pre-frozen. So there's a lot of factors. It's not cut and dry. I want you to eat more plants. And I told you I eat animal protein at almost every meal. I don't find that eating more animal protein is a problem for most people, especially since I've moved to Texas. I've never met people who eat more meat. When I was lecturing back in New York, I would have to talk about cream cheese and bagels and, and now here I'm talking about like breakfast tacos and steak and too much animal protein. We eat too much meat, and that's why it gets us such a bad reputation. We've all read the articles that red meat is bad for you. I don't believe it to be true. I think quality of meat is massively important, that you're eating grass-fed, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, pasture-raised animals, and it's the amount of meat we're eating. Men who have, heavy muscular structure, who want to make sure that they're strong, you only need to be eating 6 to 8 ounces of protein per day. Women are 4. Then you go to a restaurant and you see a steak on the menu and it's 25 ounces. And I watch people eat the whole thing, and I clutch my heart for them because heart disease is the #1 killer in the United States. It's the amount of meat. So I want you to focus on eating more plants. Can you eat something raw at every meal? Even if it's salsa. Salsa at breakfast on your eggs, now you have something raw. Alfalfa sprouts, which are the most nutrient-dense vegetable for its size. You don't have to cook them, you don't have to do anything with them. You wash them, you throw them on a salad, you throw them on a sandwich, you throw them on your eggs. Now you have something raw. I'll buy the box of spinach that's pre-washed and just put it as a base on your plate. Just put a handful on your plate and then put your food on top of it. It will wilt. You don't even taste it. Now you have a raw vegetable at every meal. Shift number 2, I have this saying ABD, which means always be detoxing. I'm going to warn you now that I'm going to Debbie Downer you and present the problem and depress everyone, and then I'm just going to smoothly enter the solution, and I'm going to lift everybody up at the end. So stay with me as I go through all of the things that are in our food and go into our bodies that limit our health, limit our lifespan, and then I'll show you how you get them out. My mentor used to always say, we are swimming in a sea of toxins. And I never quite understood it until I started my academic study and realized that every single place we go, we're being inundated with toxins that weren't here 40, 50 years ago. You go to pump your car with gas, you're breathing in gasoline. There's herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides sprayed on our food. There's hormones and antibiotics in our meat. There's heavy metals like mercury and aluminum, which are known neurotoxins, in our fish, because they're in our oceans, they're in our aluminum foil, they're in our deodorants, they're in a lot of other body care products. I just read the other day that there's aluminum in coffee creamer. There's natural flavors, artificial flavors, additives, preservatives in packaged products. What can we do? You can run, but you can't hide. I say, don't focus so much all your energy on avoiding it, focus a lot of your energy on avoiding it, and focus some of your energy on detoxifying the body. You've all heard you are what you eat. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that you are what you eat. I believe and know for a fact that you are what you don't excrete. You're not what you eat. You poop it out. It's what you don't get out of the body that becomes your state of health. And that's what I want you to start to pay attention to. There's 1.7 new cancer cases are expected for 2018 alone. Over 500,000 people in America will die of cancer this year, and that's 1,670 deaths per day related to cancer. These numbers are astronomical, and actually they're getting lower because people are quitting smoking, and they're lower today this year than they were in 1995 because of all the anti-smoking campaigns and people getting really educated about what smoke does to the body and to the health. So these numbers are improvements. When you think about other countries that in their language don't even have a word for cancer, when you look at developing countries, Eskimos, people who their food is untouched, they don't have the chemicals in their environment that we do. They don't have the technology and food that we do. They don't even have a word for cancer in their language. What does that say to us? This is not the human body is just breaking down. There's something in our environment that is causing this massive spike. At this point, all of us in this room know at least one person personally who has had cancer. Anybody don't know someone who has cancer or had cancer? Because the statistic in 1990 was that they predicted that by 2020 that it would be 1 in 2 gets cancer. We have to do something about this. I firmly believe that it's all of the technology that we've put in our food and the chemicals that come into our body that we're not able to process out. I got excited coming here because I did what I normally do, which is the night before I give a lecture, I open up the PowerPoint to review it, and then I wind up rewriting it every single time. And I haven't given this lecture since before I got pregnant, and there's been so much new research, so I had to change the statistics, and I got really excited coming here because to me this wasn't just, okay, I'm gonna come and you guys, Matt probably threatened your lives, you have to come and listen to this, nutrition, and maybe you'll eat more plants when I leave, and that's great. I got really excited because I feel like this information that I'm about to go over with you could save your life and could save the life of your family, and could dictate whether the last 20 years of your life is in a wheelchair, in and out of hospitals, incapacitated, or whether you're going on walks, still with the love of your life, enjoying your family. That's a major, major deal. It's not just the toxins in your food, but it's the toxins in our environment, in your kitchen, the plastics that we use. You've heard that plastic is now by law BPA free. You've heard that term before. BPA is the only one chemical in plastic that we've put enough funding behind to research. There are tons of other chemicals in plastic that we haven't researched, so there's no information about. Plastic is something that is a man-made invention, and many people say that one of the worst inventions for our health. You'll notice that a lot of technology has been great to propel us in so many other ways. Our Apple iPhones, the technology of the internet, but when it comes to our food and our health, it's really done us a major disservice. Aluminum foil is one of the most unhealthy things you can find in your kitchen. We'll come back to this, but I updated these statistics that red meat cooked in aluminum foil showed an increase in aluminum by 89 to 378%. Poultry increased by 76 to 214%. Aluminum levels increased with higher cooking temperatures and longer cooking times. Aluminum is a neurotoxin, meaning that it's a toxin the body doesn't know how to excrete, and it affects the brain. When we take in heavy metals like aluminum and mercury, the body doesn't have the capacity to detoxify them without help. So they travel to the brain and they sit there, and they also travel to our digestive system, and because they're heavy, they sit at the bottom of our intestines and they cause all sorts of crazy issues. There's so much mounting evidence connecting it to dementia, autism, and Parkinson's disease. There's a Dr. Anthony Williams, medical medium, he says that 100% of dementia is caused by aluminum. 100%. When they've done the autopsies in people with dementia or Alzheimer's, they find, don't quote me, but I think it's 95% of the brains have heavy metal in it. So we're getting aluminum through the aluminum foil in the kitchen and other ways that we'll discuss in a moment. And then the Teflon in our non-stick pans Our food's supposed to stick in the pan. Non-stick presents a lot of chemicals, and you can tell when you first buy it and you heat it, it smells. What's worse about Teflon is when you scratch it. If you have scratches in your non-stick, you've got to throw it out, and then you might as well buy. They have eco-green Teflon that doesn't have any PFOAs, POAs, and all of the toxins that Teflon presents. When you scratch it, it opens up basically, and every time you cook in that pan, you're getting chemicals in your body. Same thing for plastic. When you heat it is when it excretes all of the nasty chemicals. So putting plastic in the dishwasher is a big no-no. If you're still going to do it, put it on the top rack because it gets less heat than the bottom rack. Sometimes when you drink a plastic water bottle, you go, oh, this kind of tastes like plastic. We don't realize that that pallet of water bottles could have been out in the sun in 100-degree heat before it made its way to the store shelf and we drink it. If your water tastes like plastic, you are drinking plastic. Our bathroom, the body care, our skin absorbs 65% of what we put on it. That's why you'll hear some hippies like myself say, don't put anything on your body that you wouldn't put in your mouth. So if you wouldn't swallow your shampoo or soap, 65% of what's on your body, on your skin is going to be absorbed into your body. Your skin is the largest organ in your entire body. So our body care presents a lot of damage. Our hair products, the house, our cleaning products, our detergents, Lady or Ease, our makeup. We swallow pounds of lipstick every year trying to look good for you guys. I have a secret. It's not for you guys. We really just want to look good for other ladies. I did my hair for her today, not for you guys. But our makeup is filled with heavy metals, and it's poisoning us. New clothing, hopefully this is the one thing you'll never forget me say out of this whole slide. When we get new clothing, I know how badly we just want to wear it right away, but it is covered in chemicals. That's what makes the clothing look all nice and wrinkle-free. It's covered with formaldehyde, caustic soda, sulfuric acid, bromines, urea resins, sulfonamides, halogens, bromines. And then there was this other study that I read that they have found actual feces and, you're trying on clothes that other people have tried on. Make sure you wash your clothes, especially before you hug your kids. Wash your new clothes when you come home with new stuff before you wear it. We talked about aluminum and how it's a neurotoxin. So what is and you know where you're getting the biggest amount of aluminum besides aluminum foil is your deodorant. Deodorant that is what's it called? Where it's antiperspirant, thank you, is always aluminum. That's it's blocking the body from sweating. When we talk about it, it feels very common sense, but I was the same way where, I just did what everybody else was doing. So when I was in high school and I went through puberty and I started smelling like a trash can, I just picked up Secret because that's what my best, it's like, and then we're using Degree for the next 20 years. We just don't even think about the logistics of we are supposed to sweat. That's one of the main ways that we detoxify. And if you're eating really healthy, your BO doesn't smell that bad. My BO smells like onions and garlic because that's what I eat. And let's question, would it be so bad that we had a natural smell to us? Because everybody says natural deodorant doesn't work, and it doesn't. I wear it anyway. Every day I put it on, I'm like, I don't even know why I'm putting this on, because I'm just going to smell like BO and lavender. But when you're healthy, it doesn't smell that bad. And I want you to think about putting something on in your armpit that has heavy metals, and all your lymph nodes are right here. For women with breast cancer and our breast tissue, that could be a huge health shift for you, that you switch to a deodorant that isn't an antiperspirant. And they're really hard to find, so you'd have to go to Whole Foods or go online. I know that people really love something called Primal Pit Paste. I use something called Urban Cowboy that have a men and women's that you get at Whole Foods. And look on the back of your deodorant. It'll say active ingredient is aluminum. For your food, the way you avoid the herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides is to buy organic. You brought up a really good point before we started lecturing about how there is a limiting belief going around that healthy food is more expensive. With Amazon buying Whole Foods, their pricing is so incredibly competitive because they're at this point competing with Walmart and Target and these places that are selling organic produce. Costco has a ton of organic produce. If you buy the 365 brand at Whole Foods, their company made that private label simply to rival the price point of what you're buying at your local H-E-B or Fiesta or a regular supermarket. I'm not saying you have to shop at Whole Foods. Now we're pretty spoiled. You could, really nice H-E-Bs have a huge organic produce section. And I want you to compare the price of buying fresh produce and meats towards what you're spending a month when you're going through drive-thrus and eating out. It's, one dinner out could be $80, $50. If you just put that one dinner towards your budget, for the entire month you'd be able to buy food that makes you feel better and live longer. You know what they say, you either pay for it now or you pay for it later. In the bathroom, natural deodorant, clean body care, green cleaning products, again, Method brand, 7th generation. These are massive companies at this point, which then brings the price point lower. Always wash new clothing before wearing it. Remember how I said you aren't what you eat, but you are what you don't excrete? You can run, but you can't hide. There's no way that you're going to not be exposed to the amount of toxicity that we have in our day-to-day lives. So for that reason, you have to be really, really nice to your liver. Your liver is the main detox organ of your body. Its job is to filter out all the junk that you get exposed to that needs to leave the body. Another thing for people who want to lose weight is that the liver creates bile. Bile is like laundry detergent for a stain. It breaks up the stain and flushes it out of your clothes just like it breaks up fat and flushes it out of your body. If you want to burn fat, your liver has got to be working at 100%. A clogged liver affects your entire health, the way you think, the way you feel, your mood, your sleep, your skin. Does anybody know what the top 4 stressors to the liver would be? Number 1, alcohol is one of them, but there's actually something that is more toxic to the liver than alcohol. Caffeine. Which is kind of mind-blowing because we were always taught alcohol, 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 but caffeine is something that everybody drinks every single day. It's a norm at this point. Then there's the, what are they called? Banks. The Monster 2.0. So we have caffeine. Number 2 is alcohol. Does anybody know what number 3 would be? Sugar. And the 4th is prescription drugs. It blows my mind that it's so easy to have somebody that's not overdoing any one of these things, but to be on all 4 of these things. Let's take someone who drinks a cup of coffee in the morning, just 1 cup. They have a couple of glasses of alcohol a week. They eat sugar because there's sugar in everything, and they're on allergy medication. We wouldn't look at that person and say, oh, that person's wildly unhealthy. Or a female who has a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, some dark chocolate at night, and is on birth control. We just don't consider it a big deal, but that person every single day is putting the top 4 stressors on the liver and then wants to detoxify all the other things in her life. I'm not saying cut these things out, I just want you to be mindful of them. My husband is a caffeine addict. He's just one of those, and I don't drink any caffeine. He's a coffee lover. Everywhere we go, even when we go on vacation, he has to go to like the cool hipster, tight jean wearing coffee spot. We have to like go out of our way and take an Uber to like the cool coffee place. And on a Saturday and Sunday, he wakes up, the first thing he does is reach for that coffee. I always say to him, why don't you just take a break this day? You're not getting up and having to go to work. You don't have to have tons of energy. And he's just so addicted to the sauce that he just goes, and it's the first thing. When you're sleeping, your liver does the majority of the work. During the day, you're up, you're pretty much breaking down the body during the day. Sleep is for repair. The liver does all of its cleansing and detoxifying work, and then when you wake up in the morning, it's dehydrated and it needs a little help. the number one thing you could do to drastically improve your health would be to start the day with 16 ounces of water and a half of organic squeezed lemon. It is the most powerful liver cleanser that you could put in your body. It cleanses the blood. It alkalizes the pH of your body, even though lemon is a citrus food, which makes it acidic as a food. When it goes into the body, it's the most alkaline food you could put in your body. It alkalizes your pH, and disease lives in an acidic pH. Cancer can only metastasize in an acidic environment. So it alkalizes the pH of your body, and it helps you burn fat because it creates more bile every morning. And in the winter, if it's warm, that's nice for the digestive system, but it can be room temp water, half a lemon. It can't be the pre-squeezed lemon. It has to be straight up the fruit that rots and spoils. You cut it in half, you squeeze it in your water, and just chug it. And your liver goes, ah, thank you. Don't eat after sunset, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and minimize the top 4 stressors. I don't want you to freak out if you're taking medication and drink coffee every day and have a glass of wine a couple days a week or a beer. I just want you to think about what of those things can you minimize? Can you go a few days without? Everyone who comes to see me in the office or any of my coaches at Nutritional Wisdom will go on a 10-day detox where they cut all caffeine and all alcohol. It's rough. And I secretly love it because after the 10 days, they feel so fantastic. The third shift is to cut dairy. This is typically where people start to throw their cheese blocks at me in the crowd. We have been lied to, people. I am upset about this. Those commercials with the mustache that's really Elmer's glue, saying that it builds strong bones, it's not true. There's a few facts. We are the country that consumes the most dairy out of any other country in the world. We also have the highest rates of osteoporosis than any other country in the world. Dairy does not give us the calcium that we need to build bones. There's an enzyme in dairy called calcium phosphatase, and that enzyme is what allows the human body to absorb calcium. But that enzyme, like all enzymes, are incredibly heat sensitive. What do we do to raw milk? Do you guys know? We pasteurize it. The pasteurization process is that we heat the milk up to about 180 degrees in order to kill all the bad bacteria. And it kills all the good bacteria as well, including the vitamins, minerals, and enzymes that are heat sensitive. We used to need to pasteurize because farming practices weren't clean and they weren't safe and people were getting sick. Now, as horrible as the farming practices are, they're not dirty. It's just that there's a lot of money in pasteurization. So we continue to pasteurize it. We also homogenize it, which is when you used to get milk, when your grandparents got milk delivered to their home, they got these milk bottles where the fat would rise to the top and then the milk was at the bottom. And we decided we didn't like the way that looked and that was gross, so we started to homogenize it where we took the molecules and spun them so rapidly that the fat would be suspended in the milk. Remember what I said about eating foods that rot and spoil? The closer it is to the way nature made it, the healthier it is for you. The further away it gets, the less healthy it is. An apple is going to be really healthy. Apple juice is going to be slightly less healthy, even if it's fresh, because all the fiber's removed. Then you've got your fruit leather. Even though it's organic, it's even less healthy because it could be in a plastic wrap for months and months, maybe even years. And then you have, your apple lollipop, which has a resemblance. It like waved to an apple one day, but there's really no apple in there anymore. That's what's happening with milk. By the time you get milk in a carton that has a cute little cow on it, it doesn't resemble anything of what your great-grandparents used to drink. Dr. Willett, who is the head of nutrition at Harvard and the second most cited scientist in our entire health world, has done a lot of exclusive research on dairy, and here were his findings: that milk does not reduce fractures. In fact, it may increase fractures by 50% because we can't absorb the calcium from it. That Countries with the lowest rates of dairy and calcium consumption have the lowest rates of osteoporosis. Dairy may increase a man's risk of prostate cancer by 30 to 50%. It increases the body's level of insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, which is a known cancer promoter, and that 75% of the world's population is not genetically able to digest it. Forget all the science, because that's, impressive speak, but here's something that I think about. We are the only species that drinks milk from another species. I am like fully pumped and ready to go. Does anybody want to have a snack? Would you drink breast milk from a stranger? For real, I'm asking. Would anybody, if you went into H-E-B to get a snack later this afternoon and they had breast milk?
My driver would.
He'd be smart, because it's filled with lots of good stuff. But really, we would think that was disgusting. You go, I don't know this person, I don't know what they eat, I don't know how they live. It's different based on each woman, what she eats. It's so drastically different, the nutrition. It seems really gross to us that we would just drink the breast milk, yet we do it every day from a cow, and we know how they live. If any of us visited a factory farm, we would never drink milk ever again. Because the cows are so overmilked, their udders get infected, and the FDA allows a certain percentage of pus in the milk from infected udders. So if it's tested and it's below point whatever of white blood cells from an infected udder, it's available for human consumption. It's why they pasteurize it. The enzyme called lactase, which is the enzyme that allows us to break down the lactose in milk, which is the milk sugar, we stop producing between the ages of 3 and 5 because we're also the only species that drinks milk past the age of infancy. Every other culture and species, once they've passed the age of infancy, stops drinking milk and starts eating real food. And I'm talking about drinking milk, but milk products are also involved: cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, ice cream. So forget the statistics. This is the thing that sticks in my mind when we think about logics. Logic is, why is it that we stop creating the ability to digest milk, and why it's so normalized in America to drink the milk from cows? Yeah.
Sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
Regarding that, I'm just thinking about how much normal milk I give my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So, can you expand a little bit on between the ages of 2 and 5, and if that's harmful for the
For kids.
correct?
My recommendation is to keep kids as dairy-free as possible because it limits the amount of allergies, eczema, it lowers, when you get sick, so milk produces something in the body called arachidonic acid, which is pro-inflammatory, it's mucus producing. And you might remember when you were younger, you would get sick and go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, lay off the dairy for a couple of days because you're mucusy. Or a good doctor would have said, lay off the dairy. For kids, they're exposed to so much stuff at school and they get sick so often that I find limiting dairy helps with immunity tremendously. I would switch them over to an almond milk, a rice milk, any sort of, there's so many nut milks. You can make milk out of any nut. You can make pistachio milk, macadamia nut milk, but almond milk has a thick consistency that resembles cow's milk the closest. So when you're transitioning, I would do half and half, and then I would go to a sweetened almond milk because milk actually has a ton of sugar. That's the lactase enzyme. And then I would start to get to the place where you could do half unsweetened almond milk, half sweetened, and then before you know it, you're just giving them water.
My 1-year-old is just transitioning off breast milk, and he's having, we give him organic whole milk with fortified vitamin D.
Yeah.
And he loves Greek yogurt. We also buy organic Greek yogurt, and we buy organic cottage cheese too. I mean, obviously he eats the same food as my wife and I eat. We're constantly
Yeah.
boosting the vegetables and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
But he also drinks 16 ounces of organic milk every day. And he loves Greek yogurt.
I know it's a hard concept to get around because we've been so brainwashed that growing kids need milk, and then we get stuck in it, and we're eating a large majority of our intake is dairy. Cheese is on everything, yogurt. Now, what I was saying to this what's your name?
Clay.
Clay?
It's Ted.
We'll just call you Monster.
No, it's Ted.
Okay. What Ted and I were talking about is there's a gradient. So is Greek yogurt and a yogurt that's lower in sugar going to be healthier and that's organic and comes from grass-fed cows healthier than, your Yoplait or Dannon yogurt that has fruit at the bottom and has more grams of sugar than a Snickers bar? Absolutely. Some people can tolerate dairy products, and then I recommend trying to get raw dairy, which you can get at the farmer's market. They will sell. It's illegal in the state of Texas, but it's not illegal. In California, you can get raw dairy at the grocery store. And so I would prefer that it be non-pasteurized, non-homogenized, and the way that nature intended, especially for growing kids, because there's a lot of immunoglobulins and lactoferrins. There's a lot of good stuff in milk that's in mother's milk that can be transferred. Also, sheep and goat milk dairy is far healthier than cow milk. When you look at the molecular makeup of cow versus human breast milk, it is total opposite. But sheep and goat are more closely mimic human milk. The fat molecules are thousands of times smaller, so it's easier to assimilate, and there's very little casein in sheep and goat milk than there is in cow. But my recommendation is to switch over. I had coconut yogurt this morning. Doing coconut or almond yogurt, doing a nut milk as an alternative, and they even have alternative cheeses. I mean, I'm a Jew from New York, and I eat cream cheese that's made with cashews, okay? So it's gotta taste good, or else I wouldn't eat it. But it's hard. It's hard to wrap our minds around it that milk is not giving children the calcium that it should. Also, the word fortified, it's great that you brought this up. When you have to fortify something, and you'll see this more and more because the marketing companies are really catching on. So now you'll see something like gummy snacks, like gummy bears at the store, and it says fortified with vitamin C or vitamin D. Whenever you see the word fortified, it means that the food was what we call in the holistic world a dead food. There was really nothing in it because it was pasteurized or whatever the case may be. They then need to fortify it with synthetic vitamins and minerals in a lab and put stuff in it so that they can market it to us. So once milk is pasteurized, it doesn't have anything that we can absorb, so they then fortify it with vitamin D and calcium and whatever they can so that we go, oh wow, this has good stuff for our kids. It's up to personal preference, and I say make small changes, but it takes a lot of work to unbrainwash what we've been told about dairy and to get our kids into a non-dairy alternative. And this is plain fact that there is more calcium in leafy greens and nuts than there is in cow's milk. There's 3 times more calcium in almond milk than there is in cow's milk naturally. But we just never promoted that before because that's just not our culture. And we could talk more about it at the end. Okay, get your calcium from food instead. Dark leafy green vegetables, sesame, tahini, sea vegetables, sardines, salmon with the bones. Even if you just eat nuts, a handful of almonds is going to give you most of the calcium that you need per day. I want you to take vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency is an absolute epidemic in the United States. If you've not tested your vitamin D, you absolutely should. If you don't get in the sun, which is the best way to get it, then you should take a supplement. Give the elimination technique a try. Most people don't realize that dairy makes them feel bad because they've been eating it their entire lives. That before picture of me, I was doing mainstream nutrition. I was like low fat, yogurt. I was eating cottage cheese and fruit for a snack every single day. I was told it was high protein. It was like the dieters' famous, dieters' snack. I was drinking skim milk in my Kashigo lean cereal every morning. I mean, I was having dairy at every meal. And you could see how bloated I was. The elimination technique is easy and it's free. For 2 weeks, eliminate all dairy, 100% of dairy, creamers, yogurt, milk, cheese, cottage cheese, ice cream, froyo, all dairy, and then add it back in after 2 weeks and see how you feel. Do you start to get sinus drip right away? Do you feel inflamed when you wake up in the morning? Does your stomach hurt? Do you bloat? Do you have diarrhea? So many of the issues that kids come to see me with, trouble with their digestive system or their rashes on their skin, we cut out dairy and it completely goes away. If you can tolerate dairy, use only raw, organic, unpasteurized. The fourth shift is time-restricted eating, and I won't spend too much time on this because we can go deeper into this if you have questions on it, but have you guys heard about intermittent fasting? There's so much information out there. There's different ways to intermittent fast. I'll keep it very quick, is that each of us has a circadian rhythm, which is an internal clock that regulates our hormones and our metabolism. In fact, babies, when they're born, don't have a rhythm, which is why they sleep and wake every 2 hours. It takes about 6 months for some babies up to a year to I say grow, but it's not a physical thing, but to harness this circadian rhythm that we all have. This rhythm works on the sun and moon cycle, so it's a 24-hour cycle that happens whether we're sleeping or not. The research that we've done around eating is that it's far healthier to eat within a specific time, also according to the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm fasting is a type of intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting just means there's a window of time with which you eat and you don't feed all day long. The most famous study was done at the University of Stanford, where they took 2 rats and they fed them both a very unhealthy diet for what would be a rat. One rat, the food was in the cage all day and all night, and the other rat, they fed the same amount of food, but they fed that rat within a window of time, and that rat ate all of the food within a window of time. The other rat ate the same exact food all day and all night, and the biomarkers and the blood markers for these 2 was astonishing. One rat was far healthier, the one that was intermittent fasting, than the rat that was feeding all day long. Also, I mentioned to you that the liver does all of its cleansing work at night. After the sun goes down, the body is preparing for rest. Without the technology of electricity, we would hunt during the day when we had light, we would eat during the day, and when the sun went down, we would go to bed because there were predators out and it wasn't safe for us and we no longer could see what we were doing. So we would eat our food and we would go to bed. And that still rings true for us today. I use an app called Zero. It's free. It's so easy. There's 2 buttons. You press a button when you stop eating for the day and when you start. It has a goal of 13 hours to have the fast, and then you can see how many days a week you're getting that fast. Anyone who has digestive issues should absolutely try this. The benefits of time-restricted eating: weight loss, muscle growth and strength, lowered cholesterol, increased longevity, decreased risk of disease, improved digestion. The last shift is to follow a morning routine. Your first hour of your day is the most important hour of your day. And I can be at fault for this, but if I'm not careful, I wake up and within 5 minutes I pick up my cell phone. And I check my email, which is a list of things that everybody needs from me. And my brain starts going off right away, the hamster wheel of what I need to do. And if you're not careful, you start living this rat race of day after day. And you know what is my nightmare? Living for the weekend. And I know it might be different for you guys because you might not have a typical Monday through Friday schedule, so whatever the weekend is for you, you can think about it this way. But when I feel like I'm just trying to get through the day and I go, okay, Wednesday, hump day, and I'm living for the weekend, and then on the weekend I have this low level of anxiety because I know it's leaving and I'm gonna have to start work again, and we're not fully present to what we're showing up. We're not fully present to our lives. The first hour is going to dictate your energy throughout the rest of the day. And I don't mean energy like high energy or low. I mean energy like being in a grateful place, being happy, being somebody that people want to be around, being able to give of yourself to people during the day without being exhausted at night, not being completely identified with the me in my mind. You know what causes depression? An obsession with the self. Whenever you're sad or stressed, you're not thinking about other people. You're not in the moment. You're just thinking about your own story. Next time you're in the car driving home, I want every car you pass, realize that everybody is totally identified with their story, their mind, their lives, and it's all the same shit, and it's all the same problems. And there's an entire lecture on that of how to find ultimate peace and happiness, how to, quote unquote, live your best life, as kitschy as that sounds. I want you to get your butt out of bed at least 30 minutes before you're currently doing now, unless you're getting up at 5 in the morning already. I want for the first 20 or 30 minutes for it to be just about you. Whether it's you're exercising, you're journaling, you're setting intentions. One of the most powerful things that I do is I wake up in the morning and I think about, when the day is over, how I want to feel about that day. What did I give today? How many times did I smile? When somebody asks me, how are you? I don't just want to go, good, how are you? And I don't even think about it. I want somebody to say, how are you? And I want to say, I'm fantastic. And I really want to mean it. I have air in my lungs. I'm alive. Anybody who doesn't have problems is someone that has a heart that's not beating. If you're alive, you have problems. The goal is to get higher quality problems. And a mantra that I always tell myself is, don't turn a gift into a problem. 99% about the stuff you stress about is a gift that you've been given, and we turn it into a problem. We worry about our kids, they're a gift. We worry about managing our money, it's money. We worry about, our job. I know how hard it is to become a firefighter, it's a gift. Think about one thing that you're stressing about right now, and think about how it's actually a gift that that thing is in your life, and we've turned it into a problem. Oh, great, donuts.
Yes, they were brought to us and bringing them to y'all.
There are 3 questions I ask myself before I go to bed. Yeah, make sure Ted gets a donut. I ask myself, what did I do today that was great, so that I can celebrate? We don't celebrate ourselves enough. I also ask, what could I do that I could improve? And the 3rd question I ask is, what am I going to do tomorrow to put that improvement into action? So out of this lecture, I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing today that you can improve? And what are you going to do tomorrow to put it into action? And even if that's throwing away your deodorant and getting deodorant that isn't rubbing a neurotoxin into your armpit every day. You have such balls eating that donut at this lecture. I love it.
So good. I'm more of an aerosol guy, is that bad?
Yeah, it's just as bad. Or maybe it's next time you go food shopping, you go into the organic section and you start to buy some of your produce organic, or you switch from your cow's milk to your almond milk, or you try the non-dairy options. You buy yogurt that is made with coconut or almond instead of cow, or you wake up a little bit earlier, or you drink more water, or this one thing that you wake up tomorrow and you drink 16 ounces of water with lemon in it, then my job is done. I'm going to come back twice more, and I have a lot of different lecture topics, and instead of Matt and I just deciding, I would love for you guys to decide what it is you want to learn about. So I'll have Matt send out those topics to you, and just vote on it, because I'm here to talk about anything. When I spoke to the Pflugerville Fire Department, I gave a lecture and we wound up talking the whole time about muscle building and which protein to eat. It totally went a different direction, but I'm here to serve you. So if you have questions, make sure that you ask them. I know we're running a little late today because we started late, but I will take some questions, and then I'll make sure to leave a lot more time next time for some. Yes, Mr. Donut. So good now. Pay for it later.
Yeah.
I'm just going to drink my lemon water. Please continue.
Can you touch base on your knowledge of lichen food?
Say it again. Of what in food?
Lichen food.
What's lichen food?
Lichens. Foods that contain lichens and how it affects the body.
Oh, lectins?
Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, lectins. I wouldn't worry too much about lectins in food. Here's my answer to that, is that do you notice that more and more we're having digestive issues, people everyone that comes to my practice in the last 10 years that I've been in practice, the type of people coming that need healing or need to lose weight or want to be happier or whatever the reason is, the digestive symptoms are getting worse and worse. People have leaky gut, they have SIBO, they have parasite infections, they are bloated all the time, they suffer from constipation. Pooping every day does not mean that you're not constipated. You're supposed to get rid of 12 inches of bowel movement per day. And whether you shit 2 6-inchers, 3 4-inchers, I don't care, but you gotta move 12 inches of bowel movement. So if you have little rabbit pellets every day and you think you're not constipated, think again. There's so many digestive issues that we're seeing. So we're starting to see all these diets come up, like lectin-free diets and FODMAPs and GAPS diet and all these diets that are basically dancing around these foods that would otherwise be healthy for us because people's digestive systems can't handle it. So instead of going on these diets, I would rather address what's going on at the root, because I want you to be able to eat something. If Mother Nature made it, whether it's beans, unprocessed grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, if you're having trouble digesting it, I'd rather look at what's going on in the body that's not balanced, instead of before you know it, you're on a lectin-free diet, but then you also don't eat this and this, and it's it feels like food prison for a lot of people. It's a good question.
Regarding the aluminum foil,
Yeah.
I reheat everything on aluminum foil. So I'm just kind of thinking, like, you mentioned parchment paper.
Yeah.
I've had some interesting experience with parchment paper where
It burns.
melt the stuff.
Yeah.
So, if that's a preferred method of heating in the oven,
Yeah.
I guess it's also a laziness factor as well.
I
Right?
know.
Not cleaning the pan every single time.
I know. I grew up on aluminum. I mean, it's just been the last couple of years that, and these are small shifts. I don't want you to feel like you have to go home. And I mean, every year, every month, I would commit to, like, okay, I'm getting the plastic out of the kitchen. And then we'd buy a bunch of Pyrex glass dishes, and the plastic tops we hand wash so they don't go into the dishwasher. And then it was like, okay, it's time to get the aluminum foil out, which I honestly think is the number one thing to start with in the kitchen. And then it was starting to use parchment paper, and it's super annoying. Health is inconvenient. It is. If health were convenient, we wouldn't have 1,600 people dying every single day from cancer. So you're right, you do have to clean it. There are alternatives, like, the glass Pyrex that you can put in the oven. You can grill something instead of, my parents still use, every time I go to their house, they're cooking in aluminum foil. But putting it on like a grill thing so you don't have to clean the entire thing, but you just clean that. And when I use parchment paper, you can't let any of the sides come up because they'll burn. So I have to cut it, and I don't cut it, I just fold it over so it fits in so that it doesn't burn. If any of it melts, it's just wax. It's the same type of wax that's the wax on your even organic apple that you're getting with your produce, so it's not harmful to consume. But I'd rather that not happen. So when I'm heating something to a super, super high heat, I will just use glass, or I'll put it on the grill. Good question.
I had someone text me who's watching remotely, wanted to know, in reference to intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Especially long-term and shift schedules and how that works. Could that be harmful or anything like that?
Give me an example of what a shift schedule is.
Like basically working 24 on, 48 off, and coming in to work fasting, knowing that you could potentially run a pretty, tough call.
Yeah.
That requires you don't have any fuel in you.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. Intermittent fasting, according to circadian rhythm, should only work for someone who's also sleeping according to their circadian rhythm. So that's a great point to bring up. If you're up for 24 hours, your circadian rhythm is off anyway, so then trying to fast and having an emergency and you've got no glucose in your blood for fuel, it could affect your thinking. So, the general intermittent fasting rule is to eat within an 11 or shorter window per day, and if that person wants to try intermittent fasting, they could do it in their specific shift, or I would recommend not. There's for many reasons why you shouldn't intermittent fast. If you're pregnant, breastfeeding, if you have thyroid issues, if you're not getting adequate sleep, it can make any imbalance worse. And intermittent fasting is not the end-all, be-all. It's not something that works for every single person. So if you find that it's just not working for your lifestyle, it's just one tool.
I got one, so like you gotta take antibiotics, and that kills your gut.
Yeah.
What's a good thing to take while you're taking
So antibiotics will live in the digestive system for about 3 to 4 hours as they're being digested with food. So you need to take a probiotic, which is the opposite of antibiotic. Antibiotic kills everything bad, so it does its job, but it kills everything good as well. So you put good bacteria back in the gut, which is a probiotic. You cannot take a probiotic and an antibiotic at the same time, or else it will make the antibiotic less effective. So you need to wait 3 or 4 hours. If your antibiotic is given bid, which means it's given to you, prescribed to you twice a day, you'd wake up, you'd take the antibiotic, you wait 4 hours, take your probiotic, then you take your antibiotic early with dinner, and then you take your probiotic right before you go to sleep. There's a specific strain of probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. If you go to the store, it's called Florastor, and that's a specific a probiotic that eats yeast, which tends to grow, especially for women, after you take antibiotics. That's why lots of women will get vaginal yeast infections after they take a round of antibiotics, because the yeast in our body overgrows without that good bacteria there. So not only do you want probiotics, but you want that specific strain, and it's called S. boulardii, Saccharomyces boulardii. You missed the lecture. Alcohol, it depends on the kind of alcohol. Alcohol is sugar, and it's absorbed into the bloodstream much quicker than the sugar we eat has to go through the digestive system. And, you know, by the smirk on your face, I know you know the answer to that, which is alcohol in moderation.
Is there like a better one as well?
Wine, red or white wine is filled with antioxidants because they come from grapes. You could just eat grapes, but you know, you could argue that. And clear liquor is better for you, so doing a Tito's, seltzer, lime, you're hydrating at the same time. I would say the worst alcohol is beer.
I have another question from somebody wanting to know about protein consumption and I guess the rule about your body can only process a certain amount of quantity of protein per se.
So growing up in Staten Island, which I'm really promoting, and I just told you that I don't tell anybody that because it's embarrassing, but I mentioned it twice, so I don't know what's wrong with me today. But I don't know if you guys know what a Guido is. It was like everyone I dated until 1990. But you know, you'd go to the gym and you'd see these Guidos, and they're in their like white wife beaters, and they're wearing chains to the gym, and then they're working out, and then they're drinking their protein shake, and their protein shake is one of those GNC protein. It's like 50 grams, 100 grams of protein per scoop. And I just always wondered like what they thought, like where was that going? Do you think you poop out the protein that you don't eat? You store it as fat. The body, the kidneys are what help the body process protein. The end byproduct of protein is uric acid or urea, which that's why if you go work out with some Goomba who's eating too much protein and he's on the keto, Atkins, paleo, whatever, which not saying those things are bad, it depends on the person, it depends on the time. If their sweat smells like urine, it's because they're eating too much protein and their body's trying to excrete the uric acid out of their skin. You can only digest a certain amount of protein at every sitting. For men, even a big guy, it's gonna be, 50, 60 grams. Everyone's different. And for a female, 30 to 40 grams, depending. So these 100 grams of protein, what your body can't use, it stores, and it stores as fat. So they were actually gaining weight from their protein shake. The numbers of gram, it's so relative, and it doesn't matter because I am vehemently against counting calories. You should eat the amount of protein at one sitting that is the palm of your hand. The bigger your hand, the bigger the piece of protein. And when it comes to protein powders, and we could talk for an hour about protein powders, and if you're interested in maximizing your results in the gym, what to eat before, after a workout to make sure that you're gaining muscle, all the things to do to make sure that your muscle's growing and not eating itself, we could do an entire lecture just on that. But your scoop of protein should be no more than about 30 grams. You're getting protein from other places. Remember I said no one food, so you're putting a scoop of almond butter in it, you're getting 10 grams. You're using nut milk, you're getting 7 grams. It adds up. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not ideal for 1 gram.
Regarding sleep, real quick as well,
Yeah.
obviously with shift work, we nap during the day, try to make up for what we don't get at night.
Yeah.
Tired after a long night of
Yeah, so with napping, you're resting, but you're not necessarily rebuilding. So the circadian rhythm is a 24-hour sleep cycle that happens whether you're asleep or not. Between the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is the body's time for psychological repair. So that's when your muscles are repairing and all of the damaged tissue in your body is repairing. And then from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is a time for psychogenic, or what we call hormonal repair. And the body will start to repair the brain chemistry and all of the hormones in the body. If someone says, well, I sleep 8 hours, but I sleep from midnight to 8 in the morning, and they're working out and they're trying to build muscle, they just cut into half the time that human growth factor, HGH, which we know bodybuilders will try to illegally buy on the internet and inject into them because it cuts fat and builds protein. Our bodies naturally release this between the hours of 10 and 2. We get our own HGH release, but it only happens if we're sleeping. So if you go to sleep at midnight or even 2, 4, and it's totally off, there's no way for your hormones to do the type of work that it would when you're napping. Napping is good. You are resting the body. You will feel like you've gotten a little bit of a jolt, but there's nothing that can compare to sleeping according to the sun and moon, but it's just a part of your job. When you nap, the perfect time to nap is no more than a half hour. Any more than a half hour, you're going to get deeper into REM sleep, and when you wake up, you're going to feel groggy. And this sounds really ridiculous, but the most reparative way to nap is by laying down with your feet up in an L shape, so my back's on the floor, and then your feet would be, up on a chair or something. And you set a 30-minute timer, and it's
30 minutes of resting or 30 minutes?
I mean, hopefully you sleep and you get a little bit of a touchdown and you come up, but resting, meditation, anything will be good to help you revitalize, but there's just no way. One of my mentors, who's a very famous holistic practitioner, he got to the point where he was so huge, you had to spend $5,000 to even go and see him, and he would not work with anybody who was either smoking or like taking on a night shift, because he got so snooty. He was like, well, there's no way for you to, be as healthy as you possibly can, so I'm not going to work with you. I mean, you do what you have to do. I think every job has some sort of consequence to it. I sit most of the day, or when I was seeing clients more than I was lecturing, I sat. How many people sleep from 10 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, but they're sitting on their ass all day, and sitting all day is as detrimental as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. There's a consequence for anything. So, you guys do such amazing work. I would never want you to feel like it's, you're not healthy because you're not sleeping according to the rhythm, but it is a price that you'll pay long term. And you will catch up. So on the days that you're really off and you're not on call, and I'm not sure exactly how that works, but if you can get to sleep at 10 and take some melatonin and get to sleep at 10 and even have 1 or 2 days where you're according to the circadian, you be doing a lot of catch up for yourself. So that does matter. Don't say, oh, for 5 days I've been sleeping so crappily, I'm just going to go to sleep at 2 a.m. It doesn't matter. It does matter. Your body will do a lot of healing if you can kind of reset.
You say melatonin, you're talking like the pill?
Yeah, I mean, there's different qualities and types of melatonin, but 3 milligrams of melatonin will typically, a half hour before bed with a lot of water, will typically do the trick. Correct. Or what was your recommendation? Percocet or Benadryl. It depends on the person, and that's actually one of the lectures out of 3 that we had set up, which is how to find the right diet for you. It depends on the person. I'm not anti-animal protein. There are some vegetarians that can thrive on a vegetarian diet, but this is my ultimate opinion on this, is that if you cut out any one food group that you could grow or kill, ultimately there is going to be some sort of imbalance or consequence you have from that. And this is really the future of nutrition, we just got a lab into the office where you can take your blood and they can crack open the blood cell and look at all the nutrition in your body. So not just the 7 to 10 days of what you took in your multivitamin, but the last 3 to 4 months of what's actually in your body. And I was talking to the doctor at the lab, and she said, oh, these amino acids are typically low for vegetarians because they're not getting animal protein. Or she said they're low for people who eat the same thing every week. They eat the same chicken breast every single week. They just eat chicken. Their amino acids are low. And she said, well, we also will see this for people on the paleo diet who don't eat any grains and beans. We see these certain nutrients will be low. And I think that she really said it best, is that you want a really varied diet with an emphasis on eating more plants, more vegetables and fruits than you do anything else, and more vegetables than anything else. I think that's a focus that we all could use improvement.
What's low on gluten-free diets?
I don't know, but
You guys gluten is bad. Yeah,
It's good. I've done gluten-free for 5 years. I don't know if it's, I came in when you were talking about
Yeah.
like, treating like the root, like leaky gut and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I don't know. I've seen, somebody pour it and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's in my head, but whatever's going on.
it's not in your head.
I mean, no, I'm saying that like, maybe it's a placebo.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, it works for me. I don't break out in hives or anything. I don't have like celiacs or whatever.
Right.
But
I don't think gluten is good for anyone. I equate gluten to sugar. Sugar is not good for anybody. Someone is going to be more sensitive to sugar than other people. People are prone to diabetes. People are prone to blood sugar imbalances where you get really hangry if you haven't eaten every 3 to 4 hours or whatever that is. So some people will be more sensitive, but for someone who goes, well, I'm not sensitive to sugar, it's not like it's good for them. It's sugar. Sugar feeds every single virus, bacteria, and cancer in your body. Gluten is the same thing. You have people who are more sensitive to gluten than others, but gluten isn't good for anyone. It's a protein molecule on wheat, barley, and rye that causes tremendous amount of digestive upset. And, think of the word gluten like glue. It's like glue for the digestive system. Most people go, oh, it's this new agey, like everyone's on gluten-free diets. The reason why this has become such a buzzword is that the amount of gluten that was in our wheat 50 years ago, and I'm making these percentages up because I don't know them, but just as a comparison, let's say was 3% of the wheat that we cultivated had gluten. Now it's something like 90%. So is everyone just becoming gluten intolerant because that's the new buzzword? No, our food has changed. Our farming has changed. Our soil has changed. Our agriculture has changed. That's why everybody's getting sick. That's why we talked about you have to detoxify. You have to, it's not enough to just eat fruits and vegetables. You have to buy organic. My grandmother, when she was growing up, her mother didn't say, here's an organic salad. She just said, here's a salad, because it was all organic, because they weren't spraying Roundup on their stuff. There was this picture I saw not too long ago where the Roundup, which is like the #1 pesticide used on produce. And here's a guy from Monsanto, which is the biggest company that sells Roundup, and he's in a head-to-toe hazmat suit spraying it. And they're like, oh, but no, it's totally healthy for you to eat. But this guy's in a full hazmat suit. But I should put it in my body and in my children's body. And it is a myth that foods that have a thick rind, like bananas or apples, or to peel, that you can just peel it. That is a myth. That came because on the cleanest list, a lot of those foods on the cleanest and lowest sprayed list happen to have thick skin. It is in the DNA of the produce. They spray Roundup on it when it's a seed. And what happens to the plant is it sucks all the nutrition from the soil, but it'll also suck everything else that's in the soil. So that's not just on the outside of the fruit, which I wouldn't want you to peel because that's where all the nutrition is, or the vegetable. It is the entire piece of fruit. So you don't just peel the banana and you're good to go, or peel the cucumber. And I want you to eat as much of the outside of your produce as you possibly can.
So to elaborate on that, are there, for people who aren't going to buy organic, are there certain things that have a higher concentration of pesticides, kind of like a 10 list?
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it, at least do it with the
Yeah, and it's being updated all the time. I think the most recent, avocados, bananas, asparagus, those are the eggplant, those are the lowest sprayed. Some of the highest sprayed vegetables that you always want to buy organic are potatoes, are one of the highest sprayed produce. So when you eat potato chips, if they're not organic and you're just getting Lay's or something like that, not only are you eating a fried food, but you're eating a food that's covered in pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Up to you. Potatoes, apples are the highest sprayed. Cherries, berries, fruits that are, all your berries are the highest sprayed, so you want to make sure to get those organic. And I have an updated list I can send you that you can send out to everybody. I'll take one more question.
Do you want this bacon-covered donut?
I'll pass. That's a perfect question to end with. I'll see you guys in a couple of months. Thank you for coming, and there's a replay, so if you guys missed it, you